Hello, everyone. And now for something completely different. Taking you down to southern Spain, Andalusia, where I live in Malaga. I'd like to thank ICF for the invitation to be here. And this is my home. Bajo el Olivo, or translated Under the Olive Tree, is an international creative artist residency that emerged through the pandemic lockdown and unfolded with the migration and relocation of a creative practitioner and her partner from Australia in Melbourne to a rural location in Andalusia, Spain. The residency is a platform that emphasizes a more embodied connection with our post-human future. It is a concept that recognizes ethnographically that within the grave ecological crises and the pandemic condition, we the human species are endangering our coexistence with other species, and how diverse organisms are entangled in political, economic, and cultural systems that we have initiated. So this residency started about 2 years ago and is designed to foster the theoretical and creative ways that a radical entanglement is interconnected with a situated perspective, one that flourishes as a transversal site for artistic events and research, building resilience in ecological continuity, community building, and storytelling, and most importantly, bringing other forms of life into light, to suggest that we have become post-human since our mode of being is dependent on complex entanglements with animals, ecosystems, and technology. So, visiting guest residents are creative protagonists contributing to the artistic, philosophical, methodological, and socio-cultural matter that takes place in a transformative site for creative practice. And in our post-pandemic future, to walk mindfully is to converse with vital matter, and vital matter being a key word from American theorist Jane Bennett's book. In its emergent growth, the vitality of the artist residency is rooted in a circular relationship for the practice of research creation artworks, where artists are using the residency as a speculative thinking space for practice-led research, merging with a slow infrastructure in the doing and making of an artwork, inclusive of how humans can listen and relate with the articulations of non-human beings and living systems. Ursula K. Le Guin, Always Coming Home, is a major work of the imagination from one of America's most respected writers and poets. A rich and complex interweaving of story and fable, poem, artwork, and music, it totally immerses the reader in the culture of the Kesh, a peaceful people of the far future who inhabit a place called the Valley on the northern Pacific coast. The author makes the inhabitants of the valley as familiar, as immediate, as wholly human as our own friends or family, and I like to think the same way about Bajo el Olivo. So therefore, I would like to think that the guests who visit Bajo el Olivo are mapping the terrain with other multi-species, human and non-human in nature, and are the collaborators. In this context, they are contributing to the artistic, philosophical, methodological, and social-cultural matter that takes place. This method of thinking suggests that reworking the relational thought of working with others in performative fieldwork can produce unexpected ruptures in dominant thinking about nature and culture. Besides being non-human, creatures can be regarded as parts of society that move past questions of representation and abide with us in multi-species worlds. And here are some very important protagonists in this project. The noble Spanish tomato fruit, in Malaga we call huevo de toro, is grown here on the land, where I physically listening to the earth and is situated as a becoming by thinking with the ecologies of care and hope and making kin. With this mind-body connection puts into motion a speculative process that seeks the all-too-human desire to see some kind of concordance between two mandates, the desire that we happen to occupy a privileged place within this spatial relation, and two, the residency becomes an expanding network of users, collaborators, and partners who come together to work on the land, share resources and local knowledge around a community economy. In its emergent rhizomatic growth, we are all in this together under the olive tree. I would argue that the post-colonial logics of speed and convenience are also manifesting in much of the art world that we exist, creating ease for some and harm for others in a hierarchical, elitist infrastructure. Addressing many of the environmental crises that we are now entangled in requires, I propose, encouraging a slowing down to grasp the notions of labor as working from the gut, where a slow metabolism provides creative possibilities that consider an attunement to the earth as rather a relation of co-composing with the more than human. This reflection on how our relationship with other forms of life can be reconfigured and accountable as a site of transformative potential for creative practitioners through direct engagement with the earth, community, the contact with local Spanish artists, artisans, gardeners, beekeepers, farmers, where storytelling in time, space mattering, and the future architecture of home is a refuge that is becoming and that reinforces a reimagining that is rooted in participatory art practices. This entanglement upholds, 1 minute? Okay. So this entanglement upholds there is a way to bring farmers, scientists, creative artists, researchers, and even artisanal bakers together to connect, exchange processes as a transdisciplinary approach in a nomadic encounter. Skip here. American scholar, feminist theorist Donna Haraway has rooted her coexistence with the human, non-human world as a radical hope, we might call it, a commitment to a future existence, which by definition cannot be described but should be explored. If one recognizes that we cannot know how climate change and ecological catastrophe are going to transform our world, how human civilization will change in response, how will humans adapt to the new world of the Anthropocene, or who we will become in the future, is really, really important. So just to close, this is a project that I'm involved with that took place last summer as a practicing sound and performance artist myself, considering the art and environment as a participatory collective model, and this is going to be exhibited in Montreal at the Museum of des Laurentides, and it is a collaboration with Bonnie Baxter, who is a professor at Concordia University, and also with Dr. Jen Ray, a Métis Canadian artist who is situated in Melbourne, Australia. So to conclude, this residency empowers residents to use the sensing body to explore the potential thousands of distinct material ecologies embodying a symbiotic relationship with the natural world, its creatures and multi-species. And this creative convergence sets up an alternative ecology of matter and meaning, growing patterns, storytelling in a site-specific latitude on a small parcel of land in Spain. Thank you for listening.